Alright, good evening everybody. Tonight we're going to be talking about the case of Miranda v. Arizona from 1966 out of our Pearson American Government text. This will lead us into our course on the Supreme Court. This will be the last case that we look at. We'll look at the case of Miranda v. Arizona, like I said, which took place in 1966. The case itself involved an incident that happened in 1963 with Ernesto Miranda, who was a young man out of Phoenix, Arizona, who was arrested and charged with rape, kidnapping, and robbery. After about 2 hours of deliberations, Ernesto finally signed a confession to the case, for which he was sentenced for 20 to 30 years, depending on his behavior. Well, this was at the district court level of the state of Arizona. Ernesto's lawyers then took his case to the Court of Appeals, which, as we've talked about, is the next level along the this court system we have in the United States of America. And his lawyers argued that he was not fully told what his rights were. Okay, the fact that we have in the Fifth and Sixth Amendment the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, so on and so forth. They argued that he did not know this. Okay, and that the confession was bullied out of him, so to speak. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and in 1966, the Supreme Court sided with Miranda, overturning the conviction by the state of Arizona. This went all the way to the federal level, the United States Supreme Court. They argued that a person must be told their rights after being arrested. Therefore, we now have what's known as the Miranda rights, which are named after Ernesto Miranda. Later on, Miranda was retried for the case, and he was found guilty. He was let out of prison. A few years later, he was stabbed to death at a card fight in Arizona. So the famous person that we have are what's known as Miranda rights, where police have to tell you you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to attorney, so on and so forth, came from a convicted rapist, robbery, and kidnapping suspect out of Phoenix, Arizona. And like I said, this is the last case we will look at in our chapter on the Supreme Court, which you can find this information on page 510 and 511 in your text. Okay, everyone, have a great evening.